One thing you mentioned earlier, as we were talking about your like people coming to sell you stuff, is that they didn't try to understand your business. And I just had a sales call with someone who jumped on a call with me, who was trying to sell me something, and I wrote a blog about dissecting his all that person's error. So hard to jump on calls right now with a salesperson. With I don't really care what they're selling me. I just care about how.
Mm.
And he didn't ask me a single thing about my business.
Yeah.
He said that he understands what my business is, but he didn't
Yeah.
reiterate that. Uh, and if he doesn't understand the why, like why did I start this business? How are you going to help me? So easy when it's one person. Like you're a small company at the time, right? When you were running the digital pharmacy portion for your, so it should have been easy for someone to come and ask you about your business. And as it gets bigger, it gets harder. But most did not ask you
Yeah.
why. Most didn't understand the why behind the why. Right? I think that's the term that you mentioned to me last time we chatted. So right now in your current role, or even in your previous role, how did you learn to figure out what the why is behind the why, and how do you continue to use that
Yeah.
today?
Awesome question. And yeah, so there's no straight answer. There are loads of different influences that have led me to sort of consistently think this way and really want to take this into my career. Um, the first thing I mentioned is that, I think we're somewhat disposed to basically, or rather our brains are somewhat disposed to basically looking for shortcuts, right? Heuristics, influenced by context. So we think we are acting independently. We think we are being dynamic and sort of going out there and sort of acting as independent individuals. Whereas the reality, and you'll see this just in that, well, perfect example of the AE that you're just talking about, or, companies coming and talking to you and not asking you a question about your business. That's an example of that. That individual probably thinks I'm acting independently here. There's nothing rehearsed here. The truth is we end up doing that, you know, just acting rather than reacting to a situation. So the I starts to become more of this kind of, it can become very, very static. We're not actually doing anything. Whereas the truth of it is that we need to be dynamic. Okay. We need to be able to understand, why are you sitting there looking glum, on this particular day? Sometimes it's just a case of just wanting to understand that. And with, lots of sales people and people in sales cycles, they don't have the time and they don't care because they've got a, they've got a pipe to get through and they've got a quota to meet and all of that stuff. But from my perspective, the reason why this was so top of mind, one of the influences is it comes from my martial arts training. So I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I've been training for about 14, 15 years. And what's very, very interesting about that, and not just my martial art, other martial arts as well, is when you are training or competing or whatever it is, you can learn as many techniques as you want and then apply them to a static object or your training partner. But when you go in to compete, if you do not understand, take a moment to try to understand the scenario in which you're in, you sink very quickly. So adrenaline takes over. And before you know it, you've lost or you've been choked out or whatever it is. You don't even know what's happened. Taking that step, that breath, just to assess what's going on is vitally important. Then when you start getting into the actual, nitty gritty of fighting or competing, in my case, it's grappling, you look for impulses, you look for responses. Okay. So that only comes from having an understanding of the fact that your individual may look as though they're tired, but they might not be tired. Your individual looks strong, but they may not be strong. You have to be able to sort of apply that thinking as opposed to just going in there going, I know this, I am going to do this, and that's it. Because it might work one or two times, but it won't work all the time. And that's that, you've got to have this flexible mindset is just something I've had stuck in my head.
Just to add to that story, I'm a white belt, no stripes jiu-jitsu practitioner, if you will.
You're
Call it. My kids have been doing it for a long
right.
time, and since they started being able to beat me up, I'm like, maybe I should start some jiu-jitsu. But something that I noticed is that they tell you how to do something, and when you're the static object, your partner is allowing you to do it, it's very easy. And as soon as you start rolling with even someone like a white belt with 2 stripes, and you're doing something to them, and then they do something completely different from what you were told they're gonna do, then you failed, right? And then they got your back and they choke you out. And that's when I started understanding, like, all right, they're telling me to do this. Why? Why are they telling me to do this? Oh, this is the concept of putting pressure here or don't put your balance there. That's why they're telling you to do this. It's like now I can use that in my rolling.
Absolutely.
And the same thing comes with sales engineering. We had a customer invite us over to chat with them about our newest product. That customer has not bought from us for 10 years. They always bought from the competitor. And we were so happy to just be in there. And like, hey, why do you want to do this? Oh, I just want to give you the opportunity to win a deal. We never thought to ask why. It's like, all right, cool. Thank you. You're so kind. But it turns out, like, after digging in and staying, because I'm an enterprise customer level SE or sales, I keep working with the same customers over and over. So it took me 4 months or 5 months to figure out, oh, they're having a problem with the competitor, with the incumbent, with this specific area, and they're looking to see if we're going to solve it, and we haven't even touched on it. And as soon as I figured out that why, and why is that important, right? Like, oh, can you do this? Why is that important? Like, all right, the incumbent is becoming slower in that aspect, which is slowing down production for them, which means they're slowing down revenue. Cool. Let me show them how fast we are. And as soon as we did that, that's when we won a deal. Now, I've since then switched from the competitor to the incumbent, and we fixed that problem. But most of us think, when we say do a discovery like this, we don't ask why.
Exactly.
We're curious about technology. Like, why does this work like that? But I don't find a lot of SEs are curious about human behavior, which is what I think, like, your background in diplomacy and literature and all that, I think that gives you an edge in that.
Yes. Yeah, you couldn't have put it better. I mean, what I loved, again, talking about the broader sales engineering community, is not just the fact that it's really vocal and there's all these great initiatives like the Pre-Sales Collective and podcasts like yours, but it's also the fact that there's so many talented individuals from different walks of life. So I've come across solutions engineers that were teachers, solutions engineers that were in the army. And what's unique about those individuals, actually one solutions engineer I've since spoke to him about a role actually, but he was in a band. So he was in a band that toured with Dream Theater and the Bucks of Paul Logue is his name. Super interesting guy, but like you would never think, how would you go from being bona fide rock star to being a sales engineer? But you have to know people. And I think that the most important thing is that people buy from people. This is such an old line. People don't buy the way you think they buy. They buy from people. And if you don't like that person you're talking to, or you have identified that that person is not listening to you, it's really easy to put the phone down or just lead someone on, and if you want to include that in your pipe, I don't care. You go off and do that, but I'm never going to buy from you. I'm just going to keep leading you on. And,
they'll only buy if they absolutely have to and don't have an option.
Yeah. Or just to be spiteful. Sure. I've never done that.
So, but I've been in situations where I know they didn't like my salesperson and they had to buy anyways.
Okay.
But they bought despite of the salesperson, not because he didn't help them make a decision or anything like that. But I've been in situations right now where, because my customers like me, their competitors doing better technically, they feel bad for me and they still want to help me somehow. So yeah, like being likable. And something that I find strange is when I talk to managers, almost every one of them, or not every one of them, a lot of them think that we can't teach technology, we can teach human relationships. Whereas I find it the complete opposite. It's so easy to teach technology, especially when you don't need to get in the weeds. but it's so much harder to teach people how to debug humans.
100%. I mean, if you think back to the age-old dilemma that we often discuss in our community about RFPs, yes or no, do we engage or do we don't, or do we not? It's a simple question of just why. So why in the first place? Why were we invited to this RFP? Oh, I don't know. It's a huge company, and our competitors might be involved. So great, let's just enter. Yeah, but why? Are we going to win it? Don't know. If our competitor are involved and they're far, more capable and better resourced, winning these types of RFPs and have done so in the past, then why are we even bothering? Are we just here to make up the number? Because without asking those questions, you can just waste time, waste resources, and get other people's hopes up. And within the context of a SaaS company, that can sometimes be a large percentage of the company, and it can have pretty bad ramifications if, for example, it doesn't go the way you want it to. So ask those questions early, get them out of the way, and then focus on the things that can deliver value.